She mocked my career, so I walked away cheating wife stories. Welcome back to Wise Gone Wild. We appreciate you being here. Where are you watching from today? We love knowing how these wild tales reach you. Let's dive into today's cheating wife story. I'm Eric, and today, I want to share a story about love, trust, and the painful moment when I realized the person I was about to marry never truly respected me. Have you ever had a moment where, in just a few words, someone revealed exactly how they saw you? I did, and in that instant, everything changed. But before we get to that moment, the one that made me walk away from an engagement in front of a room full of people, I want to take you back to the beginning. Back to when I thought we had something real, because the truth is, it wasn't always bad. In fact, for years, I believed I had found the person who saw me for who I was. Vanessa and I weren't a whirlwind romance. We had history. We had built a life together step by step. When she struggled to find her footing in her career, I was right there beside her, helping, encouraging, and believing in her even when she doubted herself. And in those moments, I thought we were a team. I never imagined the woman I supported through everything would one day belittle my dreams in front of a crowd. But looking back, the signs were always there. I just didn't want to see them. In the beginning, Vanessa was my biggest supporter. She used to beam with pride when talking about my work. Eric is insanely talented. She would tell her friends, flipping through my portfolio like it was a prized possession. She would brag about the time my photos were published in a magazine, showing them off like they were her own achievement. And for a long time, I believed that admiration was real. Photography wasn't just a side hobby for me. It was my career, my passion, my life. I worked tirelessly to build my reputation, investing in the best equipment I could afford, capturing moments that meant something to people. I wasn't just scraping by, I was thriving. I had turned my passion into a business, something many people dream of but never achieve. At first, Vanessa seemed to understand. But then, little by little, the way she spoke about my work began to shift. It started with a single comment, one I brushed off without a second thought. We were having dinner, excitedly discussing our wedding plans, when I mentioned a new camera lens I had been saving up for. She sighed and said, "You should get a real job with a stable salary. Weddings are expensive, you know." She laughed after she said it, like it was just a harmless joke. I laughed too, not realizing then that it was the first crack in the foundation of our relationship. Then came the second moment, subtle but unmistakable. We were out shopping when she ran into a colleague. I waited for her to introduce me, but she didn't. When she finally returned, she casually said, "I just didn't know how to introduce you." It stung. But I convinced myself she didn't mean it the way it sounded. The third time, though, there was no mistaking it. We were at home, having a normal conversation, when she offhandedly said, "I mean, photography is nice and all, but it's not exactly a career, right?" She said it so casually, without hesitation. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. She wasn't joking. She actually believed it. To her, everything I had built, every long night, every sacrificed weekend, every ounce of passion I poured into my work, was just a hobby, a pastime, something that didn't hold real value. Still, I let it slide. I told myself she didn't mean any harm, that I was reading too much into it. After all, this was Vanessa, the woman I had loved for years. She had always supported me before, hadn't she? Looking back, I see it clearly now. That was my first mistake. I ignored the signs, and soon those small cracks would split wide open, in a way I never saw coming. Vanessa invited me as her +1 to her company's annual office party. It was held in a sleek, upscale venue, a private hall with towering glass walls, polished marble floors, and soft jazz humming in the background. The room buzzed with energy, filled with professionals who carried themselves with effortless confidence. The kind of people who discussed promotions, investments, and six-figure salaries as if they were just another item on their to-do list. I wasn't intimidated, at least that's what I told myself. But I couldn't ignore the feeling that I didn't quite belong. My world was different. My passion didn't fit neatly into their corporate mold. Still, I stood tall, reminding myself that I was proud of what I did. Vanessa introduced me to a small group of her colleagues, 4 or 5 of them, all dressed in sharp suits and elegant dresses, sipping on cocktails as they exchanged industry talk. I smiled, nodded along, but mostly listened as they discussed upcoming projects with big-name clients. Then, one of them, a man in a navy suit, crisp and polished like he had just stepped out of a magazine, turned to me with a polite but curious expression. "So, Eric, what do you do?" Before I could answer, Vanessa let out a small, amused scoff, the kind that made it clear she was about to say something funny. "Oh, Eric," she said, swirling her drink with a smirk. "His job is basically just taking fancy selfies for money." The room erupted into laughter, not polite chuckles, not an awkward, uncertain giggle, full-on amusement. Some of them exchanged knowing glances, smirking like they had just cracked some kind of inside joke. A woman in the group even nodded and said, "Oh, that's cute." At that moment, I felt the laughter close and around me, pressing against my skin. And in that moment, I saw Vanessa clearly, truly clearly, for the first time. This wasn't an innocent slip-up. This wasn't a joke gone wrong. This was how she saw me, how she had probably always seen me. To her, I wasn't a dedicated photographer. I wasn't someone who had built a thriving career from the ground up. I was just a guy who took selfies for money. And just like that, everything clicked into place. The dismissive comments, the way she hesitated when introducing me, the subtle digs I had ignored. She wasn't proud of me. She was embarrassed by me. And in that moment, I made a decision. I wasn't going to spend my life with someone who belittled me. I set my drink down, steadying myself. Then I turned to Vanessa, looked her straight in the eye, and said, "If you don't respect what I do, then you don't respect me. And I won't spend my life with someone who belittles me." The laughter died instantly. The air grew thick with silence as eyes darted between me and Vanessa, waiting to see how she would respond. She stared at me wide-eyed, her mouth opening slightly before curving into a nervous laugh, like she still thought she could brush this off. But I wasn't laughing. I reached for her hand, slipped the engagement ring off her finger, and put it into my pocket. Gasps rippled through the group. Someone near the bar muttered, "Damn," but I didn't linger to soak in their reactions. I didn't need an audience for this. Without another word, I turned and walked away, out of the party, out of her life, and out of a place where I was clearly never valued. I didn't look back, because for the first time in a long time, I knew exactly where I stood. First, Vanessa didn't reach out. Not a single text, not a single call, nothing. And honestly, I wasn't surprised. Vanessa had always been too proud to admit when she was wrong, too focused on appearances to face any situation that made her look bad. After that party, she must have been humiliated, not just because I walked away in front of her colleagues, but because I did it on my own terms. I wasn't the one being laughed at anymore. I was the one who left. And for someone like Vanessa, who thrived on control and perception, that had to sting. Weeks passed, silence. And then, one evening, out of nowhere, her name lit up on my phone. It was a long message, but the words were predictable. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened. I didn't mean it like that. You know, I respect you. I was just joking, and I didn't realize how it came across. Can we talk?" I read it, and I just sat there for a moment, letting it sink in. If she had sent this message right after the party, if she had really thought about what she did, really regretted it, maybe, just maybe, I would have believed her. But after weeks of silence? After acting like nothing happened? No, this wasn't about regret. This was about damage control. She wasn't reaching out because she had a change of heart. She wasn't reaching out because she finally saw me for who I was. She was reaching out because she didn't like how it made her look. To her friends, to her family, to the people who had expected to be at our wedding. And that's when I knew she never truly respected me. She had tolerated my career, but she had never valued it. She had accepted me, but she had never been proud of me. She wanted a fiancé who fit into her world. Someone she could show off. Someone with a job title she wouldn't have to explain. And that wasn't me. It had never been me. So I replied, not out of anger, not to argue, just to close that chapter. "I appreciate the message. I wish you all the best, Vanessa. I really do. But it's best if we both move on." Short, simple, final. She didn't respond, and I knew she wouldn't, because for the first time, there was nothing left to say. That was the moment I finally saw the truth. I deserved better. I deserved someone who didn't just put up with my dreams, but actually believed in them. Someone who wouldn't shrink away from introducing me. Someone who wouldn't laugh at my passion, whether we were alone or standing in a crowded room. And once I accepted that, I knew exactly what I had to do next. I packed my bags and left. Our small town had been my comfort zone for too long, and I wasn't going to sit there, haunted by memories of a life that almost happened. For years, I had dreamed about taking my photography to the next level, to push myself, to see what I was truly capable of. And there was only one place I knew I could do that: New York. It was intimidating. It was expensive. It was everything people warned me about. But for the first time in a long time, I was making a decision purely for me. No compromises, no doubts, no one to prove myself to. I threw myself into work, saying yes to every opportunity: fashion shoots, events, travel gigs, anything that would challenge me and expand my portfolio. I worked harder than ever. But this time it felt different. This time I wasn't just trying to succeed. I was building something that was mine. Months passed, and I wasn't just getting by, I was thriving. My name started circulating in the right circles. My work was getting noticed. And then, one day, I received an email that changed everything. A major international photography award had shortlisted one of my photographs. At first, I thought it was a mistake. I reread the email 3 times just to be sure. But no, it was real. Out of thousands of entries from all over the world, my work had been chosen. And when I finally saw my name listed as the winner, I just sat there, staring at the screen. Not because I couldn't believe it, but because, deep down, I always had. Even when others didn't. Even when Vanessa dismissed my career as taking selfies for money. Even when I let myself believe, for a moment, that maybe she was right. Now, the world saw what I had always known. I was damn good at what I did. I don't know if Vanessa ever saw the news. Maybe she regretted how things ended. Maybe she convinced herself she was right all along. But honestly, I don't care. That part of my life is closed. What I do know is this: out of everything I gained after walking away, the biggest win wasn't the award. It wasn't the recognition. It was the fact that, for the first time in a long time, I was surrounded by people who valued me. People who saw my work for what it was. Art, not just fancy selfies. And among them was someone who didn't just admire what I did, but respected it. Someone who saw me for who I was and never once made me feel small for it. Because in the end, respect in a relationship isn't optional. It's non-negotiable. Looking back, I realized something important. The way someone speaks about you in public reveals how they truly see you in private. Vanessa's words weren't just a careless joke. They were a glimpse into her real thoughts, one she had probably carried all along. And I ignored the signs for too long. The truth is, when someone repeatedly makes fun of your dreams, even with a laugh, even if they call it a joke, you need to listen. Because those harmless jokes tell you exactly how they see you. And if they don't respect what you do, they don't respect you. I almost lost myself trying to fit into someone else's version of success. But choosing self-respect over a relationship that made me feel small, that was the best decision I ever made. So, let me ask you, have you ever had someone dismiss your passion, make you feel like your dreams weren't good enough? How did you handle it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story resonated with you, hit that like button. It helps more than you know.